Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're focusing on just one mountain, but what a mountain.
Yeah, its sheer presence, its history, it's really become a symbol of the American landscape.
Totally. We're talking about Pikes Peak, of course, officially nicknamed America's Mountain.
And if you want a true shortcut to understanding North America's most famous single peak, this is definitely it. That view, the one that inspired America, the beautiful, it all happens right here.
Exactly. So our mission today is to figure out why this one spot in Colorado is so significant. I mean, it gets over 500,000 visitors a year.
Which makes it the most visited mountain summit in all of North America. It's kind of wild.
It is. We're going to be pulling together threads from, ancient geology, indigenous beliefs, high altitude science, and even the physics of a perfect donut.
Okay, so to start, we have to place it geographically. Pikes Peak is this absolute monument in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
And it's what's known as a 14er, right?
Right, an ultra-prominent one, meaning it's over 14,000 feet. The summit is exactly 14,115 feet above sea level.
And that elevation is key, but so is its location.
Precisely. Pikes Peak is the highest 14er east of its longitude in the contiguous U.S. It just erupts from the plains and completely dominates the horizon. For centuries, it was this critical landmark.
And unlike so many other remote peaks, today it's incredibly accessible.
You have three main ways to the top. You can drive the Pikes Peak Highway, take the Cog Railway, or if you're feeling ambitious, hike the Barr Trail.
A grueling hike, from what I hear.
Oh, yeah. But those modern routes are just the end of a really, really long story. Before we get into any of that, we should probably unpack the history.
Okay, let's do it. The origin story. Because this mountain has always had this immense spiritual weight, which you can see in all the different names it's had over time.
It's fascinating. The names really show how connected the tribes were to this land. For the Ute people, the Tabaguash Band, they called it Tava, meaning sun, or Tavakavi, Sun Mountain. Their own name, Tabaguash, translates to people of Sun Mountain. Wow. Yeah, and they believe they were created right there on Tava. I mean, that is a deep, profound connection.
That's incredible. And the Arapaho had a different name for it.
They did. They called it Heotoyu, which basically means long mountain. You can see why.
And the Pawnee name might be the most poetic.
I think so. They called it Tuzpe, where the heavens touch the earth.
Which, if you've seen it from the plains, makes perfect sense.
It really does. Then the early European names were a bit more proprietary.
Right. El Capitan from the Spanish explorers. The leader.
And it was also called Grand Peak for a while. But then Zebulon Pike cites it in 1806, and even though he doesn't climb it, his name is the one that sticks.
And it was officially simplified, right? From Pikes Peak with an apostrophe to just Pikes Peak.
Exactly. The U.S. Board on Geographic Names made that official in 1890.
But if we zoom out from those human timelines, the mountain's own timeline is it's almost impossible to comprehend. Let's talk about that pink color.
It's spectacular, and it's a big reason why Pikes Peak is a designated National Historic Landmark. The mountain is almost entirely made of Pikes Peak granite.
And that pinkish hue is from potassium feldspar, I read.
A whole lot of it. And this granite, it's about 1.05 billion years old, Precambrian.
A billion years. So how does rock that old end up becoming this massive exposed mountain?
It's an incredible story of pressure and time. The granite wasn't formed on the surface. It started as magma that crystallized at least 20 miles deep inside the earth.
20 miles down.
Yep. Then, over hundreds of millions of years, geologic uplift pushed that whole mass upwards, and erosion just stripped away all the softer rock around it, leaving this incredibly tough granite dome exposed.
So what was deep inside is now the highest point around. And there's that other spot up there, Devil's Playground.
Right, a sub-peak around 13,000 feet. It gets its name from the way lightning sometimes just dances around the rocks during summer storms. A very stark reminder that this billion-year-old mountain is still a place of extreme active forces.
Okay, so let's move from deep time to the age of exploration. The mountain is named for Zebulon Pike, but he never actually made it to the top.
Not even close. His attempt in November of 1806 is this fantastic lesson in what not to do in a high-altitude environment.
His journal entries are pretty dramatic.
They really are. He talks about the temperature drop. At the foot of the mountain, it was 9 degrees above 0 Fahrenheit, but where they stopped, it had dropped to 4 below 0.
And their gear was just awful.
That's heartbreaking to read. Pike noted his soldiers were wearing, and I quote, only light overalls on and no stockings.
In the Rockies, in November.
Exactly. He turned back because he genuinely believed, he wrote, that no human being could have ascended to its pinnacle.
A confident failure. But it left the door open. Just 14 years later, in 1820, we get the first documented European ascent.
Edwin James. He was a geologist and a botanist, and his success speaks to, better planning. But he also made a fascinating discovery.
The state flower, right.
The blue columbine. He was the first to describe it scientifically. So the mountain gave him the view and a lasting botanical legacy.
And that spirit of determination just kept going. In 1858, Julia Archibald Holmes became the first European-American woman to climb it.
Which at the time was just extraordinary. Women were so heavily discouraged from doing anything like that.
She had that great quote about it.
She did. She wrote, "Nearly everyone tried to discourage me from attempting it, but I believed that I should succeed." And then she describes the glorious sight. That spirit is really what the mountains started to represent for the country.
Which brings us right to the gold rush, that iconic slogan, Pikes Peak or bust.
And this is such a great case of branding over reality. The fascinating thing is, the gold rush wasn't happening on Pikes Peak.
You're right. The mountain was just the landmark.
Exactly. It was the most visible thing for prospectors heading west across the plains. So the mountain became this powerful icon of hope, of wealth, not a literal map marker for gold.
In fact, the big gold deposits, like Cripple Creek, were found way later in 1893.
And they were southwest of the peak. But the brand was so strong that a company in Denver started minting gold coins in 1860 with Pikes Peak gold stamped right on them.
It was pure marketing.
It was. And all of this history, Pike's struggle, James's discovery, Holmes's determination, it all culminates in this one definitive cultural moment in 1893.
Catherine Lee Bates.
That's the one. She visits the summit in July, and the panoramic view just inspires her so profoundly that she writes the words, "To America the Beautiful."
It's hard to think of a better cultural climax for a mountain. The view that Pike thought was impossible to reach ends up inspiring one of the nation's most beloved songs.
And there's a plaque at the summit today to commemorate it. It's really the ultimate statement on the mountain's power.
Okay, so let's jump to the modern era. How do those 500,000 people a year get up there? Let's start with the highway.
The Pikes Peak Highway. It's a 19-mile toll road, an incredible piece of engineering. It's famous for these treacherous switchbacks on the northwest side called the W's.
And what's interesting is that it wasn't fully paved until 2011. And the paving was actually for environmental reasons.
That's a crucial detail. The Sierra Club sued because the gravel road was causing massive erosion, sending sediment into the Alpine waterways. So paving it was actually a conservation effort to stabilize the mountainside.
Environmental necessity driving infrastructure. And then there's the train.
The Manitou and Pikes Peak Railway. It's the world's highest cog railroad. And it just reopened in 2021 after a huge modernization project.
And if you really want to earn that view,
you hike the Barr Trail. It's a beast. 13 miles one way with almost 8,000 feet of elevation gain.
That is not a casual Sunday hike.
Not at all. And that grueling route is why it's home to the Pikes Peak Marathon, a round-trip race they've held since 1956.
Wow. The mountains has always been a proving ground for speed, too. I read about the first car to make it up.
William Wayne Brown in 1913. He drove his car, the Bearcat, to the summit in 5.5 hours.
Which sort of laid the groundwork for the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb?
The Race to the Clouds. It's been running almost every year since 1916.
And one more tradition we have to mention, the Ataman Club.
Oh, this is fantastic. It's a mountaineering club, and every New Year's Eve, they climb the Barr Trail in the winter.
In the winter?
Yes, on December 30th and 31st, to set off a fireworks display from the summit at midnight. They've been doing it since 1922.
That dedication just reinforces how brutally unforgiving that environment is, which takes us right into the science of being at 14,000 feet.
It's basically a laboratory up there. The summit has a polar climate, snow is possible any day of the year, and wind gusts can top 100 miles per hour.
And simple physics just changes, like boiling water.
It's completely different. At sea level, water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. On Pikes Peak, it boils at just 186 degrees.
186, so it's boiling, but it's not as hot.
Exactly, which has huge consequences for food safety and sterilization. Things have to be totally re-engineered for that elevation.
And that is why the donuts are legendary.
It is. The Summit House sells these special high-altitude donuts. They fry up to 700 an hour.
And the legend is that if you take one down the mountain, it just collapses.
It turns to mush. It's the perfect, delicious science experiment. They're cooked in that low-pressure environment, so when you bring them down, the increasing atmospheric pressure just deflates them.
They're a product of the mountain's physics. And what about the physiological impact on visitors?
It's immediate. The partial pressure of oxygen up there is only about 60% of what it is at sea level.
So your body just has to work that much harder.
Over time, your breathing gets faster, and the risk of altitude sickness for people who aren't acclimated is very, very real.
Speaking of working overtime, let's talk about the new summit complex. Building a $50 million facility up there seems like a logistical nightmare.
Oh, it was a phenomenal challenge. To protect the workers' health, they had a strict labor limit max 6.5 hours per day. And the construction season is incredibly short, just April to October.
And they were dealing with permafrost, right?
Alpine permafrost. The ground is frozen solid year-round. They even found that the fractured granite absorbs energy during blasting, making excavation way harder than they expected.
Wow, yet the building they created is aiming for these incredible sustainability standards.
LE Platinum and the Living Building Challenge. That means the building has to be regenerative. It has to strive to produce more energy than it uses, even in that brutal polar climate.
And this complex isn't just for tourists, it's a multi-use hub.
It connects directly to the mountain's role in defense and science. The summit has housed the U.S. Army Pikes Peak Research Laboratory since 1969.
And what are they studying up there?
They're assessing how high altitude impacts human physiology for military purposes. The new complex integrates that lab, the visitor center, and a communications facility for Colorado Springs utilities. It's a cornerstone for the whole region.
And even with all that engineering, nature is still in charge. I mean, an actual tornado touched down on the mountain just last year.
An EF1 tornado in July 2023. It traveled for 2 miles along the highway with winds over 100 miles per hour. It just reinforces the constant extremes the mountain presents.
So Pikes Peak tells this incredible story, doesn't it? It goes from being this sacred place with deep indigenous names to being deemed unclimbable to inspiring a national song.
And now it's this hub for high-altitude research and massive sustainable engineering projects.
It's this perfect balance of history, extreme sports, and cutting-edge science.
For sure. The mountain's whole story is one of pressure, both human and geological. And that pressure forces us to adapt, whether that means figuring out how to build on frozen rock or just how to cook a donut.
Which leads us to a final thought for you to consider. Thinking about the challenges of building on permafrost at that altitude, what essential knowledge from the Army's high-altitude research lab and the construction of the summit complex could be applied to humanity's next big high-pressure challenge, whether that's operating in other extreme environments here on Earth or maybe even in future space exploration? Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.